Tell them about the time we faced.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel D&T Evolution podcast with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And I'm Jamie Smith.
How we doing, lads? How we doing?
Good.
Excellent. We're all right, yeah? Excellent.
Doing pretty good, except for the small panic I just had with my network stuff. But good to go now.
Jarian's technical issues and just panicking while we're sitting there chatting about life and Jarian stressing, getting the links going. Do you know what? It's funny. I was just sitting there, you know, when the little music, the intro kicks in, I sit there sort of bopping away and then totally forget. All of a sudden, it takes me by surprise, and I jump in and go, "Oh, great!" You know, we're there. Yeah. Hi, Lisa. Hi, RMC. You're there. Usuals. Hi, Xander. I guess you're watching as well or listening. Yeah. So we're gonna we've got 2 episodes today for anybody that's watching live. Obviously, anybody that's listening recorded, you can listen at your own speed, of course. But if you're watching or listening to us live, we've got this episode which we're going to go through standard stuff, you know, news, the week's MCU news. We'll probably chat about what we've been reading or what we've been collecting or what we've been up to in regards to other Marvel stuff. And then, of course, with Jamie here, we are going to crack on talking about Moon Knight episode 5. And then we're going to have a little 15-minute break so that we can go and top up our drinks and have a restroom break. And then we're going to come back, just myself, Alex and Jarian, and we're going to get into a little Multiverse of Madness preview episode just to discuss what our thoughts are on that. So for those of you listening live, you can catch that show straight after this one. But anybody that's recorded, obviously go back and listen to that as and when you can, ideally before you go and watch Multiverse of Madness. But yeah, so let's get stuck in. Has anybody been up to anything good? You've been reading anything, doing any research? Have you collected anything new? I know, Alex, I don't know if you seem to have slowed down on the old Funko collecting, Alex, and you, Jamie, to be fair.
I've got some pre-ordered.
Just waiting.
Yeah, just waiting.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I think I've got every Peacemaker Funko pre-ordered, and I actually have bought a few recent ones. I bought another WandaVision one recently. I just got that Metallic King Shark from the Suicide Squad and the Diamond Edition Flash from the DC shop. So those are DC ones, of course, but those are like some of the most recent ones. But yeah, I totally have slowed down like buying. I used to buy I feel like 5 Funkos a week. It would feel like sometimes, not anymore. So
the bank balance doesn't allow that to happen.
The space really doesn't allow it to.
You're like working to buy Funkos. There's that slogan, isn't it? Live to work or work to live. It should be work to buy Funkos.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
Jarian, what about you with Lego? Have you bought any Lego?
Yeah, I've actually finally cleared my wish list on the Lego site because right now there's no more new Marvel Legos out there after the drop of the Thor stuff. But the Goat Boat has come in.
Hey.
Yeah, that came this weekend. Actually, it came yesterday, and I unboxed it here shortly. So the Goat Boat came in, and then I also got the Lightyear Lego sets they put out there as well. They look cool, so I just got them.
Are the goats sort of Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder? Are they like the little horses that you used to get, like all in one piece?
They appear so. I haven't opened it yet, but I'll put a picture out there once I do, just to make sure. But it looks like it. Speaking of those little horses, I found a Pegasus Lego for Valkyrie, so she can have her Pegasus Lego.
That's nice.
Maybe I can do a nice little A-team lineup since I have all the Finny Figs from Endgame.
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be wicked. I'd love to see that. Yeah, I haven't bought anything, but I went to the comic book shop today. My son wanted to go and spend some money. He bought a Winter Soldier Marvel Legends that he's been after for a while. But yeah, there was a few good pops in there. But talking about Marvel Legends, there was all the Love and Thunder Marvel Legends in there. And there was an interesting, I know, Jarian, I'm pretty sure last week when we were talking about the trailer, you read out a couple of the descriptions that were on the back of the Marvel Legends, but there was one that was on the back of Gore's box, and it said about, I can't remember exactly what it said, I'm paraphrasing, but scary new villain wielding was it a surprising or something like that weapon, but it was basically talking about his sword.
Yep.
Which I thought was really interesting. The interesting thing that I thought, the reason I found it interesting was because they focused on it. It was a point of them saying it. They could have said anything about this villain. There was so many things they could have said, but they actually chose to talk about the sword. So is it the Necro sword, and is that going to have larger implications in the MCU? It was just interesting, the fact that it was I mean, there was only, I don't know, 20 words, not even that, 15 words, and they chose to highlight the sword. So it's got to have some sort of importance, hasn't it? That was kind of my thinking along the lines. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about the Necro sword, and we know where its history comes from. Sorry, Jamie?
We know where it's supposed to come from.
Yeah.
Whether that's where it will come from.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in that movie, because there's been some promo art too where it looks like he has symbiote powers as well. So I wonder, A, if they're going to call it the Necro Sword, and B, are they going to show any of his symbiote powers, anything like that as well, because some of the promo art shows that. And then also too, everything we've seen of him has been in all white with no hood or anything, none of that stuff. But there's set photos that were leaked out a while ago where he actually had a black hood and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder where it's all going to go, and maybe that's why we haven't seen him in a trailer yet.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of CGI that hasn't been finished. Those sort of tentacles that he has, the hood, I should imagine that's quite liquid, and obviously not, able to do that with real effects. So they're using CGI for that. So, but like I say, go on, Alex.
I was going to say, let me throw out one thing. So I had this strange idea the other day, and I was thinking about this. With everything that we've been seeing about avatars and stuff like this, wouldn't it be an interesting, weird little twist if they made Gore like an avatar for Null? Like kind of like, like he gets the sword and then he's like kind of possessed by Null in a way,
Yeah, that's nice. That's good, actually. I like that. That. Yeah, that's relevant, isn't it, to what's happening now?
And I mean, like, it not only that, but like, Moon Knight finishes soon, and then we'll have Multiverse of Madness, and then like a month and a half later, however long, we have Love and Thunder right around the corner. So dealing with gods and stuff. I mean, it would kind of be relevant. So
it would be cool to tie that all together.
Yeah.
What? And then obviously we've got Wakanda Forever later on in the year. So again, there's that gods, kind of past. Black Panthers, are they going to talk about T'Challa passing and going into the what was the
ancestral plane?
Yep,
the ancestral plane. Yeah, so going into with Bast, and so there's sort of
and that was referenced in Moon Knight.
Yep, it was.
Yeah. Well, there we go. That's our conversation about a toy. Can get carried away.
And as you mentioned Bast too, Bast someone being an avatar for Bast coming forward could explain how someone's going to have the Black Panther powers going forward, with Killmonger destroying all of the flour that they used to make the powder to give them the powers for. So this could all, everyone's like, Moon Knight's not tied to anything. We know past history it's not really, but forward motion, it could set up a lot of things going forward.
I just think it would be really interesting if they did that thing where, like, Bass kind of has, like, some kind of tie to the vibranium. They kind of do the same thing with, like, Null having an avatar that has the tie through the Necro Sword kind of type thing.
I like that.
So
looks like
it's like the sword is the key.
The conduit. Yeah. It looks like Barb's joined us today too. So hey, Barb, she's in the chat. Looks like I'm seeing the page chat, but possibly not the group chat again. So we'll see how that goes.
I got a group chat. Group chat. Right. Okay then. So what we had for news this week? I know we're leaving out Multiverse of Madness news on this episode because we're going to try and cover that on the special in a little while. But what else we had, Jarian?
So I'm gonna do the Moon Knight news first because this is like hot off the press though. So Jeremy Slater, the writer, has said at one point they were considering bringing Echo into the series and making Echo a love interest of Mark Spector. So they were looking for ways to bring Echo into the fold, and early on there was an idea of using her in Moon Knight as a love interest, which is interesting because in the comics she's Matt Murdock's love interest, not Mark Spector. So I wonder if that could have been a bridge to Daredevil and Matt Murdock as well, possibly.
There is one storyline where it's that one where he thinks he's Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Captain America. He does have a bit of back and forth with Echo. I think he kisses her and then she punches him in the face. Remember?
So it was like kids in the schoolyard type of thing.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of news is that Bushman was also going to be the main threat besides Haro, but they decided not to go that route currently. So that's the Moon Knight news. Let's get into the other news, though. Sony. So CinemaCon was last week. So there's some things out there about that. I'll get into that in some of the news. I'll leave the Multiverse of Madness stuff for the next stream. But Sony has a Silver Sable film in the works. It is one thing that came out last week, which is interesting. And I'm wondering how Sony's going to do with all this stuff because Morbius was not the best. I haven't seen it, but I'll wait till it's on streaming to see it on digital. But yeah, I don't know. I'm being optimistic for Craven. Maybe just Morbius wasn't, with the delays and the reshoots and that kind of stuff. Morbius just got kind of lost in the shuffle. So hopefully, Sony can turn that back around.
Do you think that Morbius being a vampire movie, I mean, it's very niche, isn't it? Vampire movies. I still don't think they're, as much as Twilight, kind of helped that genre in a way. It didn't really do anything for the actual genre, did it? It wasn't really a vampire movie. I know it was about vampires, but it wasn't really, was it? It wasn't really a vampire movie in its traditional sense. Where, again, I haven't seen Morbius either yet. I'm going to wait for the stream as well. But I don't feel like the whole genre is at the stage where it can just rely on being a Marvel movie and then it's successful. So is it not? It wasn't successful as a Marvel movie. Was it successful as a vampire movie? I think that's probably what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's because it's that weird movie where it's like it's a vampire movie, but it's not a vampire movie. It's literally like a scientifically made vampire. It's kind of what that is, and it's so different because it's like whenever I think of like Marvel vampires and like werewolves, I think of like Underworld kind of style in my mind, like on screen. So like whenever I think of like Morbius, like I haven't seen that movie, but just looking at it, it doesn't look right. You know what I'm saying? Like it looks a little weird, and
it's sad too because Morbius has run-ins with Blade. He's Midnight Suns, all kinds of things they can bring into the fold, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Palm Clementif, hope I'm saying her last name right, said via Instagram she's finished work on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And then James Gunn requested a few adjustments to the Guardians and Thor: Love and Thunder. He responded to Twitter question about how much influence he had in the script. He replied, "I asked for some things to be adjusted, and they were adjusted." And it sounds more there like continuity. And also, too, James Gunn's one of my favorite follows on Twitter because he'll debunk stuff. He'll talk with people. He'll answer questions. He's actually a pretty accessible person in social media about how he goes things. He also said that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is wrapping up filming soon. It should be done sometime this month. Now it's May. He said early May, so now it's May today. So sometime this month. The Christmas special, though, is interesting because it may reference Eternals. Their filming location includes various posters of Kingo. Also, too, they completed filming this week for the Christmas special due out this December. So that's interesting that there might be a reference to Eternals in there when they're filming.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that Christmas special. I think I don't have that same kind of excitement for those kind of I know,
Wow.
non-projects. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But actually, this one, I mean, I think it was Gunn that said you're going to want to watch this. This is
Yep.
important,
It's going
and
to tie
that's
in.
kind of made, yeah, it's kind of made me go, oh, okay. You know, he's gone. Listen up, like watch this.
Mhm.
Just before you move on, Jarian, we've got Roxy with us and we've got Justin with us. How are we doing, guys? And there's a couple of comments from there. Roxy likes your theory, Alex. I'm not sure which one that was, but she likes one of your theories. Justin said, even with delays, there was still no excuse for Sony to botch it. I'm guessing he's talking about Morbius there.
Yeah.
What were they doing from the months of January to April? Roxy said, honestly, after Morbius disaster, they should really think about their upcoming projects. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've all agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing releasing. Oh, I don't know. Is it? I mean, it's one thing releasing another Venom movie. Venom's got a bit of background, but Silver Sable, Black Cat, even the Craven thing. I mean, I'm worried for ATJ if I'm honest.
But Sony doesn't need to replicate what the MCU's doing. They just need to make good solo movies and
Yes.
just focus on that. If they do that, they can hit some home runs. But if they
Mhm.
like start like right at the very bottom trying to build like an interconnected weave tale like with all these different characters and everything, it might get a little messy.
Do you think it's even possible for them to do that? Like, do you think at this stage for anybody, for any studio, even if with this whatever's happening at Warner Brothers or whoever's taken over DC or whatever, I don't know. Do you think it's even possible to replicate what the MCU's done because they done it first? Like, would it always just seem like you're just copying what they've done? Does that make sense?
No, but I think at the same time, I think if anybody probably had a shot to do it with like a trove of characters, it's going to be the Spider-Man characters. But they're not going to be able to do it that well. And the thing is they have a very deep list of characters that they can use in movies and shows and all kinds of stuff. It's just like you just need to lay the groundwork first and then work up to it, you know? Like don't run before you can walk.
Yep. Crawl, walk, run.
Yeah.
And I think they need to just team up with Marvel to continue to do that. Maybe let them not have full creative control, but have consulting to kind of help them steer the ship in the proper direction until they can start walking and then running. Because right now they're still crawling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple of more comments here from the listeners. We've got RMC. He said he thought the problems with the movie weren't really about the character or genre; it was how the story was told. No real direction, etc. That's what
I heard is messy.
Yeah, it said it concerns him for Craven. Yeah, we all agree on that. Justin said the more input from the directors and writers, the better. RMC said about the Xmas special is required. And he's also said about Sony trying to cash in.
Yeah. And like I said before, I think the Christmas special is going to be our intro to Adam Warlock, kind of like they did with Star Wars and Boba Fett. I think that's kind of the route they're going. I could be wrong. It could be somebody else. Maybe the High Evolutionary gets introduced in that special, or we get more of Rocket's background before we go into Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I think they're going to introduce somebody new during that special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody a little while ago, and they were saying about and listening to somebody, and they were saying about what happened there with Boba Fett and Mandalorian, you know, appearing at the end of Boba Fett, and they said that it was a great way to kind of get Mando's interim story out the way before they start with season 3. So it was almost like, this is what he's been doing, this is where he's at, right, go.
Yep.
You know, and it's almost the same as what they could do with like exactly what you just said there with Adam Warlock. They could go, look, here he is, this is who he is. Now when we hit volume 3, he's ready. You're off.
Yeah.
You know?
Just take off running.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then speaking of Morbius, it's going to release on digital May 19th. So that's coming soon. I Am Groot is using the production company Logjam Productions with working title Lone Pine. You mentioned Venom 3. I'm sorry, you mentioned Venom at CinemaCon. They did say that Venom 3 is in development. So that's good news to hear there, because right now Venom is probably their most successful title on their own. Is the Venom story. There's a rumor that Charlie Cox may start filming for Echo series in May. But we definitely know that from all the news out there and traction that him and Vincent D'Onofrio will be in that series, especially after we saw what happened in Hawkeye series. what else? I just skipped ahead here because I have a piece I want to tie together of news. Um, Production company Starfish or Standoffish Productions LLC, and working title is Perfect Imprints. Movie will begin filming in July in Atlanta area. Okay, what did I do with my notes?
What movie is that, Jarian?
Um,
He's flapping. He's flapping.
yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I have to go back. I'll have to come back to that one because I wrote the notes down wrong. I don't know why I put Brad there. It was something else.
Brad Pitt.
No.
No?
Anyways, I'll skip ahead of that. So this is an interesting one. So John Watts has left Fantastic Four project. Everything that I've read it was an amicable exit. He wants a break. He wants to take a break, and Sony has come out and said he's expected to return for Spider-Man 4 along with Tom Holland and Zendaya. So they kind of said Zendaya will be back as MJ in Spider-Man 4, but also too they expect John Watts back. Now, what's interesting, before this news came out, and this is probably that's why I'm tying this two together, the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania have switched release dates. So originally, it was February 17th was the Marvels, and Quantumania was July 28th, 2023. They are now swapping roles. So that's interesting because we get the Watts thing, then we get this news like kind of back-to-back days here of Watts not doing the movie anymore, which Marvel's probably known for a while, and they're changing dates. Now, everything I've read so far is that Quantumania is further along in production than the Marvels. But I've been reading some more stuff out there, and I think this was Murphy's Multiverse that kind of put these two together that got me thinking, is that maybe they moved up Quantumania so Peyton Reed can be free to start working on Fantastic Four if he's the new director of it. Now, that was my thought too. For Peyton Reed was one of my things. I think we had the post in the group about who you want to see direct the movie, and I can't remember who put the post up. But my first thought was Peyton Reed because I've always, and Alex had this discussion with me before, I've always wanted them to tie Ant-Man and Reed Richards, so Hank Pym and Reed Richards together, and that's how they got trapped in the negative zone or the quantum realm or wherever they are, and they bring in the Fantastic Four through Quantumania movie. That's when we get the soft introduction to them. So that's one. But also, I don't want to say his last name, but Rick Furimura, I can't say his last name properly. He's done Mando episodes. That would probably be my first person as a director to do that, because I've also been reading too that Marvel has come on, that some people have said that Marvel or Disney wants people they've worked with already to take over this film. And since he's worked on Mando, he could also slide into Fantastic Four. Now, there's no casting yet for it, and I think casting probably going to happen at the end of this year, because I think they're supposed to start filming next year from everything I read too as well. So that's the news there.
Nice. Well, there's a couple of things on that. There's obviously, there's that open slot that they've still got for an Untitled movie, isn't there? At the beginning of November 2023. Yep. So as you said, Jarian, that moves Ant-Man away from that slot a little bit more. So who knows? Maybe that is the sort of end of Phase 4, the 2023, and that is going to be the Fantastic Four movie. Who knows? But on a more comical note, Seb Marsden's post this week about Quentin Tarantino has been chosen to direct. Obviously, it was hypothetical. It was fun, you know. I think there was a little bit of confusion at first. What? Quentin Tarantino's directing Fantastic Four? No. Calm down. Like, that's not what's happening. This is a joke. But Quentin Tarantino has been elected to direct Fantastic Four. Who you're casting? Seb casted Christopher Waltz as Mr. Fantastic, Uma Thurman as Invisible Woman, Samuel Jackson as Ben Grimm, and Brad Pitt as Human Torch. I quite liked it as well. I thought that was quite funny. I put Michael Madsen as Reed, but I thought Quentin Tarantino, he's got to cast himself, hasn't he? He's always in his own movies. Like, actually, if you look at actors that have been in the most Quentin Tarantino movies, it's Quentin Tarantino. He's been in more Quentin Tarantino movies than anybody else. So I thought him as the Human Torch would be hilarious. Some of the things that the thing would say with Samuel Jackson, it's mother effing clobbering time. As soon as you said that, I heard that in my head. And Antonio come up with a good one as well. Oh no, wait, who was it that come up with a good one about? It was Antonio saying about Christopher Walken as Galactus. I just thought that'd be absolutely brilliant. Absolutely class.
Him talking to Silver Surfer in his tone, the way he delivers, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah, it would. It would. There was a lot of good little comments on that one. Actually, I was just going through a couple of these. Matt Parker said that Sue would be invisible except for her feet. So you'll know that Tarantino's got some sort of foot fetish. But yeah, great post, Seb. Well done. We like that one. I especially like that one.
Okay, so back to my brain fart on the production company. Blade Production Company is Standoffice Productions LLC, and working title is Perfect Imprints, and will start filming in July in the Atlanta area. So that was my brain fart on that one.
Funny how some things come back to you every now and again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, where did that go? How did that disappear out of my head? Excellent. All right. Have you got any more then, Jarian?
Yeah, a couple more things real quick, then we get into Moon Knight. So other things for Marvel at CinemaCon. Wakanda Forever footage was shown. Where did Alex go?
We've lost Alex.
He lost all of them back when he comes back in. But Wakanda Forever footage was shown that included a great shot of Nakia, Shuri, and Okoye all on the front line of what looked like a major battle approaching. Someone have said this is new footage. Someone have come back and said, no, this was just some shots they did from other previous movies. So I'm not 100% sure. That footage wasn't shared publicly, but they discussed that. What also came out of there as well is that Man-Thing is rumored to appear in Werewolf by Night and also use practical effects. Yeah, so some more connections there. Midnight Suns, Legions of Monsters, who knows where they're going, but between Multiverse of Madness and these properties and Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night, and we know Man-Thing's coming. Interesting to see what's going on there. Loki season 2. Oh, go ahead.
Go on, Jamie.
Oh,
yeah. I just found out the other day that that Ragnarok wasn't the first Man-Thing reference. There was one in Iron Man 3 as well.
Oh.
The extremist woman, Brandt. That's his wife. That's what the burns were on her face.
Is that come from any like the name and the actual connection?
The name and the whole that half her face was burnt. In the comics, I believe that Man-Thing burns her face.
Hey,
the one lady who went after Stark. Yep, that lady. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's back.
The one.
Sorry,
back.
I don't know what just happened.
Okay. Talking about. Sorry, Alex. We was just talking about Man-Thing appearing, and Jarian said about the fact that they're going to use practical effects. Do you know what? I think they've. I mean, I don't know this. We should ask Luke. Actually, Luke Smith from Hydra Collectibles. He worked in effects in movies and on all sorts of things, Walking Dead and some Star Wars stuff. But I think they can rely too heavily on CGI without looking too much into practical effects. I mean, if you look at some of the best stuff from Jurassic Park, when you think how long ago that was, some of the best stuff from Jurassic Park was real. Like, not real. They weren't real dinosaurs.
Look at Werewolf in London. Look at that movie. And look at some of the vampire movies back in the day. Even look at Thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I hate to say this, but and I hate to sound like Michael Bay, but like a good old explosion is a great example. Like CGI explosions don't look as good as real explosions. Like when you actually film like a real explosion versus like creating one digitally,
Wasn't that one in the second or third? I don't know what Transformers movie it was. It wasn't the first one. I think it was the second one. Wasn't that explosion like the biggest explosion in cinematic history? There was
I
one.
think in one of those movies it was.
Yeah, I'm sure it was in the second one in the desert when Optimus Prime had just been resurrected. It's stupid. He's a robot. But, he's
new batteries.
When they charged him up. And it was the biggest explosion in cinematic history apparently. Followed by a sunset and a sweeping camera move around said actor. Alex,
all right, finishing up here.
Anyway.
Loki season 2 production is starting in 6 weeks, and Tom Hiddleston promises questions will be answered. So, anything that we had leaving hanging from season 1 should get answered in season 2, hopefully.
Interesting.
Excellent.
Couple more things, and then I'm done. We can get into Moon Knight. Sam Raimi said he is game for Spider-Man 4. So, him kind of taking that break and coming back to do Mom. He's game for Spider-Man 4. He said, I didn't think it was possible, but after jumping back in with Multiverse, I realized that anything is possible now, so I am completely open to it. The last piece of news is Ironheart to start shooting June 20th in Atlanta.
That's interesting.
And that's all I got.
Excellent. Just one last thing before we go on to Moon Knight after the news. Justin said Golden Standard, a building getting knocked down in Lord of the Rings of Two Towers, was just a miniature getting smashed, but it was so convincing. Yeah. A lot of those old effects, and you know what? Actually, you can appreciate them a lot more. I think those old effects when you watch those old movies where there's floods or buildings getting knocked down or spaceships or whatever. I think you can appreciate the work that goes into them. You know, when you see some of the behind the scenes footage from, Star Wars or Terminator or things. I say Terminator, that's slightly later on than Star Wars, but do you know what I mean? When you see some of that behind the scenes footage, you can really appreciate the work and the artistry that goes into it. Not that I'm saying that CGI stuff is not art and is not difficult or talented or anything like that. That's not what I mean. But a friend of mine, he's in his 60s now. He said he remembers going to see Star Wars at the cinema when he was sort of in his teens, and that first scene where the Star Destroyer comes over the over your head and just appears over your head to that little ship, and everyone sort of ducked. Jesus Christ! And that was just some bloke with a cardboard Star Destroyer, running it over the camera. I mean, it's incredible that they can evoke those kind of people can believe, yeah, what's that? Ducking, and it's brilliant. Really, really is great. Some practical effects. So, yeah, agreed with you there, Justin. There's some good stuff out there. You're done, Jarian, aren't you?
Yes.
So we can get into this Moon Knight episode 5 of Moon Knight. Do you know what? Moon Knight as a whole, for me, and again, I'm not alone on this, I know that, but I haven't been overly enthused with it. Not in the same way that I have with, let's say, Hawkeye. I loved Hawkeye. I mean, actually, that's probably not fair because I loved Hawkeye. I thought Hawkeye was brilliant. However, this particular episode was probably, it's like Lost. If anybody's ever watched Lost, right, there's season 4 of Lost was rubbish, but The Constant, I think me and Alex have spoken about this before. That's the one where, what's his name? The Irish guy goes back and forward in a helicopter to the boat, and he keeps flipping back and
He's
forward.
not Irish, man. He's Scottish.
Scottish.
Yeah.
Desmond.
Yeah.
Thank you, Desmond. But keeps going back and forward. That is probably one of the best episodes of Lost, but mixed up in probably the worst season of Lost. And I'm not saying that Moon Knight is as bad as Lost season 4. That's not what I'm saying. It's not. But this episode for me was amazing. Absolutely loved it. In amongst, again, for me, a series that hasn't quite captured me the same as some of the other series, but this episode was incredible. I was actually crying. I don't know. Go on. Someone talk.
I'd say that was, you've seen the critics saying it before the episode was released. A lot of them said that this is the best episode of Marvel TV. Full stop.
Yeah, everyone's excited for episode 4, and they said once that 5 got put out there accidentally and some of the scoopers saw it, they said this is even better than episode 4. So episode 4 and 5 really, for me, changed kind of the series. I was loving the series that it was already because it kind of the twists and turns and made you think a lot about things. It wasn't as straightforward as some of the other ones. It kind of had a WandaVision vibe in some cases, with the thinking and the confusion and so forth. But just look at the connections too. The past 2 episodes, look at all the connections back to the first couple episodes. Just look at the fish tank by itself. We saw the boat. We've seen the goldfish again. What else have we seen? Things in his apartment, the last 2 episodes, him being chained to the chair, all kind of stuff. So these past 2 episodes, 4 and 5, are almost like you're seeing everything again from a different angle. It's like you said with Transformers, how they took that angle to kind of turn it around with that explosion in the desert. They just did that same kind of angle shot with Moon Knight by changing the perspective of it between the first couple episodes and 4 and 5.
It's funny, they're using that organizing principle that they talked about in the show to kind of tell this story, but they kind of like keep taking the parts of the story and kind of just sliding them around a little bit, you know? So it's kind of like we know the story, but we don't really know the story. You know what I'm saying?
It's like a Rubik's Cube ad trying to solve a Rubik's Cube puzzle. You know what you need to do, but all those twists and turns to get to the end of that, to finish that story, is what we're kind of getting with this Moon Knight. Going through it.
Yeah,
Progression.
Roxy said that that was the best episode of anything Marvel she's seen, and as I kind of agree. Justin said that Asylum is Marvel's divine comedy, rather than Dante exploring hell, purgatory, and heaven. Marc/Steven is exploring the duat, hell, the organizer principle, the hospital and purgatory, and the field of reeds, heaven. Yeah, yep. Get what you're saying.
And I'm sticking with my theory. I think he's dead still. I think he's dead. I think this is all a test. And the end of last episode is when we see the actual resurrection of
In
Khonshu.
the tomb.
Yep. I think this is all a test to get him, Steven, Marc, because you see they're becoming more of a team now, especially this last episode, seeing them becoming a team, and then finally, kind of get Jake in the fold, because I think we saw when Jake was created, not actually introduced, but created as another alternate for Marc. And with the scene with his at his mom Shiva outside, the cab's there, the long shot, that to me felt all Jake there. And even there's one part when he's talking to Haro, which everyone keeps saying Ned Flanders with the Haro thing, that there's one with the broken nose and he's bloody, and this is his tone, his demeanor. Was that Jake also there as well? Did Jake kind of slip out
When he stands up and he grabs the pyramid and
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said there, Jarian, about when he creates Jake, and we saw the moment on screen, and we still don't quite know when exactly that is, but we saw the moment where he created Stephen. And for me, people talk about a few moments in the MCU, don't they? They talk about seeing a minute, and they talk about I can't feel you, and a few different moments about which one really got you. For me, that was massively powerful. I mean, and I guess as well, maybe from a male's perspective. I mean, don't get me wrong, my mum's great, love my mum, and all of that. But generally, boys tend to have different relationships with their mothers than girls do. So I guess that as males, we probably felt that scene a little bit differently, maybe to females, but for me, that moment there was just that was incredible. That was up there with probably one of the most emotive cinematic, and I know this is a TV show, but cinematic scenes that I think I've ever experienced. Up there with like Andy Dufresne coming out of the shit pipe at the end of Shawshank, and you're sitting, you've just watched him, as Morgan Freeman says, crawl through 100 yards of shit to, get his freedom, and you're sort of so relieved for him at the end of that moment, and it was, and that was amazing, that kind of feeling that you get, and as much as this scene wasn't that kind of positive, it still had that same wow, like. Just incredible. Loved it, absolutely loved it. I thought what, and the way that the Oscar Isaac was kind of holding himself back, and they were just incredible. Absolutely loved it. I don't know if you guys felt the same watching it. I mean, but I was practically in bits.
There's definitely some powerful scenes in this episode.
So, question: After watching this episode and seeing what happens to Steven, do you think that Marc and Steven have become more of one, or do you think Steven's actually dead?
I think he's dormant.
Yeah.
I don't think he's dead.
Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still there. He's just dormant. I think it was symbolism.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what I think, and I think what Marc has kind of taken on some of what Stephen was there for. Do you know what I mean? It's like completing yourself, isn't it? It's like there's pieces of me all over the place, and yeah, I agree with you, Jarian.
It's kind of like Banner and Hulk. It's kind of like merging the two sides almost.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, that could be that way too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Couple
go ahead.
of comments, Jarian. Keep that in mind. RMC said he's. I think this show is out of this world. Oscar Isaac portrays the characters, plural, perfect. The writing is really great. Can't say enough good things about it. Even with that said, still will be incomplete without Jake, and still let down about the lack of Moon Knight. He's had very little screen time, very little fighting, etc. I do agree with that. I think I mentioned on a post the other day that I agreed with that. Justin said, I would have loved to have seen this on an IMAX screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see anything on IMAX. It's like going from standard definition to high definition, is that you kind of can't go back. But I think there's certain things that I could probably not pass on, but just do without. But I get, fine. RMC said yes, yes, more of one. They've accepted. Yeah, oh yeah, sorry. This is on what Jarian's point is, the acceptance and the symbolism. They've accepted each other. Stephen isn't necessary now, though. Interesting. Jarian,
Yeah, because that's a good point. Because I think Steven kind of got him as far as he needed to go, and he fulfilled his purpose. So, but my point was, one thing that was interesting is that scene with his brother, and it looked like when he's in that room full of dead people, that was his brother that kind of led them off. I mean, that scene. Do you notice the mini Khonshu on the ground? So it was almost like Khonshu has been with him his whole life, maybe kind of like in the comics, or. And did Khonshu actually kill his brother, or to kind of
create the trauma to make him weak to get him to be his avatar?
Yeah, because it was an off-scene death. So one, we don't know if it was really dead. So that's one thing. Off-scene deaths can go anywhere. Two, did Khonshu kind of take over Jake at that time, or kind of make Jake lead his brother into that area? Because that was interesting seeing that mini Khonshu on the ground, and they kind of focused on that for a few seconds as they went into that tunnel.
That could also kind of be like Khonshu being like, I've kind of like tainted everything about you, like your memories and everything. Like I'm like almost making Marc believe that he's always been there, even though he hasn't been,
That's a great point too.
Lisa's just made a comment on the post, and she said it was an amazing episode, so intense and felt really dark in places. The scene with his brother was so hard to watch, and the way his mother blamed him. Yeah, that was awful. The way, but again, so I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I don't know, is anybody?
I know about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with his work, go and check out his 12 Rules for Life book. It's really, really great. But he always talks about context. And yeah, okay, on the face of it, you'd say his mother was a horrible person. She's blamed the other son for his death, but there's a load of context there. What was his mother's past like before that life? But Lisa, that's interesting. I know you've got sons as well, so obviously that, from a mother's perspective, that takes a hold on you as well. And I liked your comment there about the dark thing. Everyone's been banging on about darkness and about this is dark. Is it dark? And I think this quote unquote dark thing has kind of almost been skewed by the DC movies. And I'm not saying I love some of them. I love some of them.
Here comes Deadpool.
Yeah. But is it about violence? Is it about blood? Is it about the actual tone, and I mean the actual dark/lightness of a movie, or is it about the content as a whole? Don't get me wrong, I do like a little bit of fighting and violence and blood, and like watching Daredevil, the Netflix ones. Are we allowed to say that now? We're allowed to say that Daredevil's a Netflix show, or is it just a Marvel show?
The Defender Saga.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Daredevil Defender Saga. I love that. But there's other ways to be dark without those things. And I think they showed that in this episode. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like those thriller horror movies, right? Where you don't see the blood and the guts, but the things that kind of like that that noise and the person kind of looks, but you don't see anything. Those subtle things like that, or the things to where like think about like Memento, or even the parts of Fight Club, where he just all of a sudden realizes that they're the one person together, and he's going back and remembering things. Yeah, there's violence in that movie, but the violence is not the thing that kind of is the dark tone. It's everything else surrounding that. The violence and stuff is just a byproduct of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, that my youngest son he's still going through that phase of wanting to watch horror movies, and we've watched a couple of the classics, the Halloweens and the Friday the 13th, and they're not even nothing really happens. Like in far as violence goes, there's no real violence in there. It's all suspense and all sort of thriller
scare tactics.
Yep,
and
exactly.
Yeah,
Look at Blair Witch Project, for example.
Yeah,
As a prime example.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the darkness of that film is the ambiguity of you don't know when it's coming the first time you watch it, like.
Yeah. So darkness means different things, doesn't it? It doesn't
Yeah.
just purely mean you've seen someone with blood on their face. Although I will say I do get, like, even in Hawkeye, which I love, and that's my favourite D+ show. But there was that moment where Yelena's beating the crap out of him on the ice, and he's got like a cut here, and then like
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, you've been hit about 20 times. Like, something else should be happening there. I mean, even when you look back on in the MCU, and when Bucky beats up Cap on the helicarrier in Winter Soldier, Cap's got a swollen eye and a bloody. He looks quite beaten up. He looks like he's been.
He put him in the hospital.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they've kind of they could do better in some of those instances, but fundamentally, darkness isn't just purely about how much blood you see. Anyway, I'll digress. Let's move on.
Yeah. So back to the brother thing, since it was an off-screen type thing that we didn't see. Do you think they could go the Black Widow Antonia Dreykov's daughter route, where she thought she killed him, she killed the daughter, but later on we find out that she wasn't dead, and that's how we get, because there's history there from the comics with Marc's brother. So I wonder if they pull something like that, especially if this is all Marc being dead and Khonshu playing mind tricks on him and testing him before he becomes Moon Knight, to make sure that he's prepped and that his broken self is working together instead of against each other or keeping things separate.
I mean, they could even go another route, like bring him back from the dead and make him an avatar of another god and fight Marc,
You mean
like
Harrow?
Yeah.
I had a wild thought about that what if Harrow is his brother? And yes, I know his brother was younger than him, but with him being Khonshu's avatar and now being Amit's avatar, did that change him or do something to him to make him look different, to Marc not to recognize him and make him look older? I know it's a wild theory, but
It's wild,
but I think I mentioned this in the group possibly, or just maybe on one of our chats, that they could take an out of left field type thing and do something like that. Or he's this guy, or maybe like it's to disguise through Amit's powers, so he doesn't recognize him. Or I don't know.
It wouldn't be totally unusual for him to do something that left field, would it? Really, they've done stuff like that in the past all of a sudden, where they've combined a couple of things.
What they could do is there's the story Hatchet Man. That's his brother. That's Randall. But what he does is he already thinks he's killed his brother before through something totally different, and he comes back as Hatchet Man, the serial killer. But he brainwashes somebody into believing he is Hatchet Man. He makes him look like Randall Spector. He makes him go after Marc. And he makes Marc believe he's killing his brother for a second time. And then he finds out that he hasn't actually killed his brother. His brother set him up to make him think he's killed him again. So what they could do is they could have it where he thinks his brother's still alive. And he feels again that he has to kill his brother again. They could do something like that.
That'd be freaky.
I
seen
yeah,
that.
that would be freaky, wouldn't it? I'll tell you what, there's no other character so far at all that has delved this far into the psyche at all. Like, not even close. Like, I mean, like I said, I really like Hawkeye, and I really like what they tried to do, but it is still fairly simple. Guy doesn't think he's worth anything. Yes, he is. Everybody else thinks he is. He realizes he is. Done.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? This is
Yep.
far.
Yeah.
This is far. Don't get me wrong. That was great, and I absolutely loved it. It's my favorite. I'm not going to talk about that, but this is far more complicated than that, isn't it?
Yeah, because even look at Wanda. Wanda was more grief type, and we'll see how that rolls into Multiverse of Madness. So that was more of a grief type thing, not more of the psyche that we have with Marc here. And then even Loki, that was more self acceptance.
Yeah.
You know, on that route. So yeah, this is probably the, you know, besides some of the Hulk banner stuff, which they haven't really dug deep into in the MCU. This is like the most they've done in the MCU.
It's the most complex, isn't it?
Yep.
But the others are not easy to deal with on a personal level, but they're easy to understand, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Woman loses children. You know, man doesn't think he's a hero. You know, guy can't accept. You know, what he's done. You know, it's quite straightforward, isn't it? It's not easy to get over. That's not what I'm saying, but they're straightforward concepts. This is not a straightforward concept at all.
Mm-hmm. To me, it kind of feels like Marc almost is serving a sort of penance for, you know, his wrongdoing before in his mind, with Khonshu as being his fist of justice. Almost is kind of what this seems like at times.
Yeah, he's almost like punishing himself, maybe.
Yeah, this is his punishment, being like Khonshu's like avatar. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so like what you saying, like his punishment for, because his mother blamed him for his brother's death.
mm-hmm.
Do you think he then in turn blames himself for his brother's death, even though he kind of knows it wasn't his fault, but he kind of still needs to punish himself because he kind of thinks it's his fault? And I don't know.
I mean, there's also Layla's dad too that we've seen in this show. I mean, there's a lot of death and a lot of people he's been responsible for. We just saw like a room of people that he's responsible for their deaths in a previous episode. So, I mean, I kind of feel like, you know, like part of this issue with the show might be that very fact of, yeah, it might be. This is kind of like his penance. It's kind of like his punishment.
Maybe it's a show that you need to look at differently. You know, do you know what I mean? I think we was all expecting, if you think back 6-7 weeks ago, I think we was all expecting Moon Knight to come out in full garb, you know, with his mummified face, beating the crap out of whoever and anybody. And actually, it's given us something totally different. You know, and there was a post, wasn't there? Fred put a post on about what I'd agree or disagree. Is the MCU too formulaic? And maybe this is them proving that it isn't formulaic.
Yep,
that
exactly.
We don't have to tell a story about a superhero. We can just tell a story about a bloke who's really going through some really difficult, complex emotions and thought patterns in his own mind. You know, maybe that's what they set out to try and do.
And probably one of the best characters depicted to do this kind of story with too, because of the content they have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and how deep they can go.
And
Alex, go ahead.
Go on, John.
No, Alex brought up Lila's father. Did you also notice too? He had the scarlet scarf with the scarab markings on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
so there's some,
kind of...
some history there, and maybe she turns into that in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
RMC said that he's a mind-bending character in the comics and on screen, pushing boundaries with the writing all the time. I don't know much about him from the comics, so.
I have a question. So them going on to the duet and the boat and all that kind of stuff, is Terawit filling in for Anubis in part of this? Is he one of the trapped gods that we saw of the 10 in the beginning of episode 4? Because we always saw from Anubis what was this, the scales and the balancing of the hearts, and it seemed like, you know, speaking of that balance, you know, was that because there was 3 of them there? You know, Marc, Jake, and Steve, and then when Steven died, that's when it balanced with Marc and Jake. But then you saw Marc go to the Field of Reeds. So when we see, you know, if he's not dead and Khonshu does resurrect him, is he resurrecting Jake? And we see just a batshit crazy, you know, brutal
off
Moon
the
Knight,
hinge,
off the hinge who fights Taro. You know, so there's some weird things there that too. Also, we during the Lila's father, we did get a Bushman name drop finally. So more origin story without showing the full origin. We did see part of the origin but we didn't see Bushman on screen. And he name dropped, his former CO that hired him as a mercenary after he was discharged from the military for going AWOL. So that was interesting too. So more hints there. Doesn't sound like we're getting Bushman, but like I said earlier in the news, they wanted to do it, but they want Harrow instead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, isn't it? How much they can not squeeze in. I don't think they've squeezed anything into anything. Actually, if you look at the last episodes of any of these D+ shows, they've kind of just gone, look, we're going to tell this story. We're not going to try and finish it. Like, if we don't finish it, we don't finish it. Like, we're not bothered about leaving loose ends. And I quite like that because I think sometimes when everything's squeezed into a final episode, you can sense that it's rushed. And I think I'd prefer the fact that there are loose ends and questions unanswered rather than them trying to answer everything. And then it just ends up being crap. Do you know what I mean? So I think that I quite, as much as I'd love an hour and a half end episode, it's the same as, I'll probably talk about in 15, 20 minutes time. I'd quite like a 4-hour Multiverse of Madness movie. But you know what? I trust that they know what they're doing. They know more than we do. We're sitting there going, well, why is it not going to be 50 minutes long? Well, because they're the professional writers. They know what they're doing.
This was always going to end ambiguously. It was never going to be anything other than that. It was always going to leave something.
And I think that fits with the nature of the show, though, doesn't it? It should leave you confused almost.
But also, too, I think they've explained everything they need to explain up until now. So the next show, we can get right into the action of probably Layla finding Khonshu to bring him back, type of thing. Him coming back out, and then the final fight, and hopefully when all the dust clears and settles, all that kind of stuff, we get some kind of post-credit scene with Work by Night or Blade or Black Knight. It would be kind of funny if we see Steven back in the museum and Dane Whitman walks kind of in, and then it ends. Type of thing.
Justin said that he'll take an engaging slow burn than a boring action romp any day. Yeah, I mean, we can see action whenever we want, can't we? Let's save that for these big crossovers, these big, huge end game moments where we all sort of, lose our shit.
Imagine they end this show and it just ends with like Marc is getting airlifted by the tomb out, and this is right after, and like they have like a medical unit carrying him off, or what I'm saying, just like a big swerve, like this was all in his head and he was like knocked out or something, like that would be
that shot we saw him with bleeding in front of Khonshu's tomb. That's where the delusion started, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Right, lads, we better start wrapping this up. We've been chatting for about an hour. I think we've done a good job. I think we've. Do you know what? As always, as well, I really like the fact that it's not necessarily this is what could happen here, and we're breaking down every scene. We're just talking about the show. I like that. I like that. There's other channels out there and other platforms out there that will break down every scene and everything and talk about theories and all of that kind of stuff. We just talk about what we like, and I like that personally, and hopefully the guys listening do as well. So look, listen, if you're listening live, we're going to be back in 15, 20 minutes. What time will we be back, Jarian? We're back at
4:45.
I was going to say 10:45. 10:45 for me. 10:45 GMT. 4:45. What
Central time?
4:45 Central time. So in sort of 15 minutes or so, we'll be back to do a Multiverse of Madness preview episode. But for today, that is about a wrap. Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. Guys, it's been a pleasure as always. And Jamie, we'll see you next week for the finale episode. Yeah, can't wait for that, for the finale Moon Knight episode. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't go far. We will be back in 15 minutes. Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you again. Take care.
Bye.
See you guys.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced them?
All right. Well, as I remember,
At Avenger headquarters,